We are Cory and Wallace, an early retired couple on a full-time journey around the world. With a passion for exploring new cultures, discovering hidden gems, and enjoying delicious local food, we are on a mission to experience as much of the world as we can.
Welcome back. If you're new around here, I'm Cory.
And I'm Wallace.
And today we are going to do a recap of 2025.
Yeah, it's early January right now, and so we thought we'd take a few minutes to sit down and just kind of reflect on our 2025, because there was a lot that happened last year, and answer a few questions that we've encountered along the way on our travels, and just talk a little bit about what's next, what's coming up in 2026. So I guess first question is, how did your travel philosophy change in 2025?
To be honest, probably a little bit more go with the flow, expect things to never work out, and to know that there's not really a good answer for this, but to know that when you arrive at an Airbnb, there's always something that's going to need some attention to get settled.
Yeah, pretty much. I think my answer is the same. Basically, my travel philosophy is go in with low expectations, expect that things are going to go wrong, and be pleasantly surprised when they don't. And honestly, that works pretty well. I think, moving forward, that type of mentality just reduces some of the stress, because there's always going to be stress, when things are going wrong, when you're at immigration at an airport, or trying to check into a hotel or Airbnb and something goes sideways. Rolling with the punches, basically. And then another question is, do we focus on longer stays in fewer places, or do we try to see as much as possible? And I think if you've been following our videos, that's pretty obvious.
For the most part, it's the longer stays, fewer places. We do have some shorter stays in there, depending on if we go to like a very expensive country. For example, Oman and Barcelona come to mind. But the longer stays really have a big benefit. A, they cut down on a lot of stress. B, you can kind of make the Airbnb kind of homey and feel like you're a little bit settled. We tend to stay for a month, and that has been working out for us, unless we end up with a really bad Airbnb, and then we just kind of suffer and get through it.
Yeah, pretty much. Obviously, we prefer longer stays. We are slow traveling. We do get asked a lot, by friends and people we meet, like, oh, are you gonna go see this, go see that? And at the end of the day, it's pretty much impossible for us to see and do everything in a location. So for example, we were just in Medellin, Colombia for 35 days. And I think we saw the highlights, but we definitely don't see and do everything there is to do in a location. One, yes, we do have the time, but we don't have necessarily the funds to be able to do everything, that there is possibly to do, because stuff costs money. And two, we prefer the slower pace. It's more relaxing that way. We're not stressing about, booking tours here, going to see stuff there. So we'd like to have a lot of, time in between activities. And also, it's cheaper to stay, 30 days at a time in an Airbnb. Typically, you get those long-term stay discounts, and that goes a long way towards, helping our budget, through the year. So, yeah.
But also, I think I've come to say, think of it like we're living in a place, and then you're doing touristy stuff once in a while. It saves you on burnout, to be honest. Because if you're doing touristy stuff every day, all day, you're gonna burn out, and burn out hard.
Yeah, like I think back to, before we retired, we'd have our 2 week long vacation, once or twice a year. And it's, you get there, you take a day or two, day and a half to fly to your destination, and it's go, 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 because you only have the 2 weeks. And it's, honestly, it's a little bit stressful. So doing it this way, I much prefer what we're doing now.
Agreed.
And that kind of leads into the next question. How do you find balance between adventure and rest?
I think I kind of answered this. Our goal is to do no more than two touristy things a week. So we try to obviously give ourselves enough downtime to recover, because the thing with the touristy things, they start early, they're either really long or it's really hot and it's exhausting. So yeah, we just really try to do no more than 2 a week, just so that we're not constantly tired or burnt out. And also I found, like, for example, when we were in, I think it was Izmir or something, we were visiting so many, like, oh no, it was Cambodia. We were visiting so many temples back to back to back. Like, we did like 5 days or 3 days, like back to back. At a certain point, I wasn't even appreciating it. And that was part of burnout. So we've learned to just not do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to take now at least 2 or 3 days in between activities and outings. And like Cory said, in Cambodia, we learned our lesson. When we go back, we're not going to do back to back days. We're going to space those out a little more. Part of it was we didn't actually fully understand that the ticket we bought allowed that, so that was on us. But we've since learned that lesson. Yeah, so moving forward then, next question is, what was your single most memorable experience in 2025?
Oh, this one is incredibly hard. I can't even pick out one experience. But I'd have to, like, if I had to choose one, probably the hot air balloon ride in Turkey. That had been on my bucket list forever, and it delivered so well.
Fair enough. I had a hard time picking between my top two. Hot air balloon ride was one of them. So I'm going to say watching the sunrise over Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
Yeah.
That was absolutely magical.
But honestly, we've had a year of bucket list experiences, and it's incredibly hard to, like, even, like, yes, that's our top now, but it can change depending on the day. So also seeing Dr. Jane Goodall talk, that was a super huge, incredible experience. So
yeah, I mean, we could just keep going on for hours. I mean, we've done so many cool things. Songkran in Chiang Mai, Thailand. We wow, so many cool things. Ephesus, Pamukkale in Turkey, the hot air balloons. We did the all the temples in Cambodia. I mean, there's so many awesome things we've done. It is hard to pick just one, but yeah. So hot air balloons and sunrise over Angkor Wat. I think we're gonna stick with those answers. Do you have any focus or specific themes for what you like to do when you're traveling?
I don't think, no. I think it depends on where we are. Like, for example, like Turkey, our goal was to see see ancient ruins. I guess that's a theme.
And I think for you, like, nature is something you like, being outdoors and actually wild outdoors.
We haven't had a lot of that.
No, that's been tougher than I would have expected. Yeah.
I think because a lot of the places that we have been going to are big cities. And I don't think that is by any fault or anything. I think that's just where the touristy spots are. And also, once you get out of the touristy areas and into, like, the smaller towns, my food situation becomes incredibly tough. So getting out into nature, yes, we could do it, but I think I would struggle even more than I do with regards to the food situation, because a lot of times you're stuck with homestays or, like, people cooking for you, and I just can't do that long term.
Yeah, fair enough. And then one of my other themes, of course, is local food. Wherever we can, we do like to experience the local cuisine and understand the culture through food, because that is a huge part of many cultures throughout the world. And I mean, yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much also one of the cheaper ways to eat, because as we're traveling, the local food is always going to be much more affordable than buying, imported foods, especially at the grocery stores, things like that. So definitely one of the ways we try to, operate. Doesn't always work. Again, Cory does have some dietary restrictions because
Yeah.
of celiac disease, and we have to work around that as best we can.
So yeah, I think the bottom line with being celiac, your food budget doesn't go down regardless of where you are, because you're forced to buy a lot of the imported food, because food labeling laws, depending on where you are, may not be up to standard compared to like Australia or somewhere else.
Um, Moving on, what unexpected destination or activity surprised you the most in 2025?
Destination, I would say Siem Reap. Activity, I would say probably um, the Kitapatangan, like the river tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Siem Reap, we fell in love with. We were not liking Cambodia prior to that because
Phnom Penh and Sihanoukville were
challenging.
yes, they weren't great stays, but
They weren't great stays, but again, I think a lot of that comes down to my food situation. We were finding it really tough to find food that I could eat and stay healthy. So once we got to Siem Reap, it was more touristy and I had a ton more options, and the whole city just, we ended up falling in love with it. And then the Kitabatangan River, I kind of knew what we were getting into. I knew it was like morning and evening cruise, like going up and down. I didn't expect the rain. We got rained out pretty hard, and I just thought it was really cool. Like the amount of nature that was there was just stunning, and we hadn't experienced that in Malaysia prior to that, so that was just a really nice surprise.
yeah, fair enough. My most unexpected destination, I think, was Muscat, Oman. We stopped through Oman on basically an 8-day layover on our way from Southeast Asia into Turkey, and we absolutely loved it there. Loved the people, loved the culture, loved the food, and the stuff we did there, like Wadi Shab, absolutely stunning. So much so that we absolutely want to go back, except as we've learned, we're going to try and go back in the winter one year, and when the weather is much cooler, so that it's not 48 degrees out when we're out in the middle of the day in the desert. But yeah, no, Oman was absolutely a surprise, and a very pleasant one at that. Next question, and I think we've already probably alluded to what this one, at least for Cory. What was your biggest travel challenge, and how did you overcome it? Yeah.
How did I overcome it? I don't think there's a real answer. I didn't really overcome it. We overcome it by cooking at home.
Yep.
And not eating a lot of the local cuisine.
Unfortunately,
because it just isn't compatible with my disease. So yeah, that's like, it's super disappointing. It's hard. It takes away from the experience, but there's not a whole lot I can do.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's all we can do. Is that ultimately is why we book Airbnbs with kitchens and spend most of our time in Airbnbs, is because we do have to cook to be able to maintain a gluten-free diet for Cory. So that's basically how we do it. I think my biggest challenge, of course, I don't have any food issues. My biggest challenge throughout the year is travel logistics. planning and booking where we're going to be going, our flights, our hotels, our Airbnbs, ground transportation in between destinations, things like that. And the challenge there is that because it's just constant, we're moving countries every 1 to 2 to 3 months typically. I'm always having to look ahead, book things, figure out where we're going to want to stay so I can book stuff in advance. Because, of course, if you book too late, things cost more and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, that's basically it. It takes a lot more time than I would have expected. And how do I overcome that? Not really, because it always does take time. So we just kind of have to plan out what we want to do, break it down into small chunks. So, I'll dedicate a day every so often to, okay, we know the next country we want to go. So I'll start looking at flights and hotels for that. And, kind of just do it out in little chunks here and there. And
I would agree with that. There's not really a way around it. It's part of travel that you accept.
It's just something that's always there in the background that has to be done. Like right now, we're in Mexico for the next 5 months. We've got most of it all booked out because I did that already, but I still need to figure out a bunch of ground transportation to get us between towns. So, that'll probably be something I do tomorrow. Did any plans of ours get canceled, and how did we pivot?
I don't think any plan. Do you remember any plans getting canceled? The only thing I can.
Hot air balloon.
Oh, well, yes. But then we didn't really have to pivot. We were there for a long enough time that we were able to just rebook.
Yeah.
So that is just something that is the nature of that particular event. And we knew that that was a possibility. It was kind of sad because we'd wake up really early 2 days in a row.
Yeah. 4 a.m. wake up in Turkey for the hot air balloon ride. That sucked. So I guess the lesson there is, in order to pivot, make sure you're in a location long enough. So unfortunately, a lot of the people that were on that first day when we got canceled due to weather, they were leaving and in the next day or two, and because the hot air balloons book up, they didn't have time to be able to reschedule. We did. So that's definitely something to be aware of. Make sure you give yourself enough time to do stuff like that and to be flexible, I guess, is the lesson there.
And I would say probably the other, I don't know if this is a plan, but our Airbnb in Izmir did not work out. And we had to pivot hard. We had to find accommodations that day. But also we had to figure out how to get our money back from Airbnb that day, because I did not trust that if we left, we were never going to see that money.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it did all work out. We were able to get a refund from Airbnb because that stay was definitely not as it was advertised. And the pivot was we had to, on the fly, book a hotel for, I think that time was a 10-night stay, which ends up costing significantly more money than an Airbnb. Now, I'm grateful we did, because that hotel stay at the Renaissance Izmir in Turkey was fantastic. I loved that hotel. We got upgraded to a really beautiful suite. It did cost significantly more money though. So one of the things that I would suggest, always have a backup emergency fund to cover things like that, because things are going to go wrong. Things are going to cost more than you expect. And if we didn't have that amount of money set aside, that might have been a problem.
Yep.
What was the most important lesson you learned about yourself during this year of travel?
That is a tough question. That I hate packing.
Yeah, travel days stress Cory out a lot.
It seems like packing never gets easier, and the more we watch like other travel videos, travel
Vloggers,
YouTube bloggers, it's the same across the board. It does not matter how many years you've been traveling. It does not matter how many times you pack. It doesn't seem to get easier or better over time.
When we first started watching travel vlogs and watching some of the other travelers, on their moving days where they're packing up their suitcase, they're having the full on sit on their suitcase with their whole body weight to be able to zip it up, and we used to laugh at that, and now that's us every time we move. Yeah.
And I think the other lesson that I've learned by doing YouTube, it was more of an experiment. Honestly, I didn't really know anything about like making videos or anything, so I've just kind of taught myself. When people say it is truly a highlight reel, take that to heart, because it is truly a highlight reel. It does not show the challenges. It does not show like the background work. It does not show anything. Social media makes it look like you have this fabulous life. And I'm not complaining. We wouldn't be able to travel the world otherwise, but it is literally just a highlight reel. There is nothing that they're going to show that doesn't make it look glamorous.
That is the point of social media, after all.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely agree. So for me, most important lesson, that you need to let the little things go and not let everything get to you. Because on a daily or weekly basis, as we're going along, so many things go wrong that you don't see on camera. So many little things, like, oh my goodness, even just in this Airbnb, how many things did I drop in the kitchen in a day and make like just a giant mess? Just learning to let those kind of things go. What habits have had the most positive impact? And again, this kind of ties in for me. It's just, the this too shall pass mentality, because when we do run into difficulties and we're having, difficult times, it's just knowing, you know what, this will pass, it'll be fine, we're going to move on, and it's going to be, okay. And I think that mentality definitely helps when you're traveling full time, because again, you can't always control your environment that you're in. I try my best to book, good locations, good Airbnbs, but anyone who's used that platform knows eventually you're going to get a bad one, and you just have to roll with the punches.
I think it's the same for me. I mean, Medellin is a good example of it was noisy, and I knew it was only a month, and I just had to survive.
So the next question is actually the most asked question we've encountered as we've met people on the road. People always want to know, how are you retired at your age, and how do you afford to travel full time?
I'll let you dig with them.
So if you haven't been following our channel, Cory and I retired over 2 years ago in September 2023. And we've been traveling full time now for about 15, I guess it's almost 16 months now, 15 plus months full time on the road. And I won't get into all the details, but bottom line is how we did this is we encountered the FIRE community. And if you haven't heard about FIRE before, it's Financial Independence, Retire Early. I'm not going to get into it here in this video. There is a ton of information out there. And I mean, financial, advice can get, it's everyone has a different take on it, whether, it works or it doesn't work. All I can tell you is it worked for us. We do not rely on any work income right now. We don't have, our YouTube channel isn't monetized. We don't have enough subscribers for that. And how we afford to do this full time is we live off our investment dividends. And that is our income each year. If you want to know more about it, I strongly suggest you Google. There's so many resources out there. There's books you can read. There's blogs you can read. We couldn't afford to do this if we were still back home in Canada. We spend less money per month right now traveling the world full time than if we were living at home, back in our house in Terrace, BC. And that's fine, because that's why we get to do what we do, which is really awesome.
I would agree. Oh, I have a question. What country surprised you the most that ended up being one of the cheaper countries that you weren't expecting?
Turkey. So we spent like most of our year in Southeast Asia. We spent like months in Southeast Asia, all your typical, Bali, Thailand, Vietnam, like the places that, travel vloggers go, budget travelers go, because they're, good, relatively affordable destinations. Turkey, we had been told, had gotten more expensive. And we did find that to be the case in some aspects. Eating out at restaurants, you're paying prices similar or more than what we pay back home in Canada or in the United States for a meal. But the actual cost of accommodation when we were looking at booking like more longer term accommodations, as well as the cost of food, groceries, was incredibly cheap, relatively, shockingly cheap when we were actually just hunkered down, and buying groceries and cooking our own meals. And the quality of the food was very high as well. Like the produce was so fresh.
They clearly have really, really good growing conditions because I think there was barely any import. And that was also my easiest country for gluten-free.
Yeah.
Eating locally was not a problem.
Surprisingly, yeah. And again, we come from Canada. Canada's not food secure at all. During COVID, we would walk into the grocery store, there'd be empty shelves because none of the food is grown there. In Turkey, they've got such huge regions where the conditions for growing crops is perfect. So everything's local, fresh, plentiful, and affordable. So yeah, that was a huge shock. That was really fantastic. So last question is, what are you looking forward to the most in 2026?
I actually don't have an answer for that. We are going to be in Mexico for 5 months. Mexico's one of our favorites, and then we're going home for
About 5 months.
About 5 months, and then we're off to like Tokyo, and that's as far as our like travel plans have gotten. I don't really have an answer.
Okay, then I'll give 2 answers. Tokyo is something I've been looking forward to for a long time.
To be honest, Tokyo I'm looking forward to, but I have a lot of anxiety about because I know food is going to be extremely tough.
Yes, gluten-free in Tokyo apparently is not easy, so I don't fault Cory for that. But Tokyo as like just a destination seems almost larger than life. We don't know anyone who's been to Tokyo or Japan in general that doesn't absolutely love it. And we love Japanese food, so that's great. But Tokyo just looks like it's just got this vibe that is different from anywhere else in the world. But the other thing I'm looking forward to, we only recently made this decision. We are going to spend Christmas in Siem Reap, Cambodia in 2026. And I'm really looking forward to that because we loved Siem Reap, as we discussed earlier. And unfortunately, when we were there, it was May and it was really, really hot and humid. The weather in December should be much more pleasant, much more tolerable. And apparently, they've got a really cool Christmas vibe there because we've seen that in some other videos recently. So we are very much looking forward to that, I think.
Yeah.
To close out 2026.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure we're going to do some other things in between that.
Oh, absolutely.
That are going to like, not trump that, but like, I'm sure I'll be looking forward to. We just haven't gotten there yet. So, yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining us today on this video. Just a little recap of our 2025 and a little bit of a look forward to 2026. We hope you've enjoyed following along on our adventures. And if you have, please hit the thumbs up to give us a like and make sure to subscribe.
And follow us in our other videos for more adventures. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.